burden that affirmative imposed on themselves. They told us that by transferring responsibility to UEFA, especially inside the stadium, you can actually decrease the occurrences of these riots. But you see, there's even no puzzling on why you even need to take away those national authorities within the stadium. Because all their arguments or characterization actually assumes that such riots only occur, for example, within the game and not even outside, for example, in pubs, etc. Because now, what are the limitations of UEFA that affirmative denies even up to now? You see, what happens is that the power of UEFA is limited within the sphere of the football game, i.e. their enforcement can only go so much as to punishing what happens when, example, fans disrupt the game or and so on. What about those instances, for example, of fan hooliganism or threats to security that do not directly implicate the game but endanger public safety as well? They never gave us a very tight proposal on enforcement, and so on. Yes, ma'am.
Obviously, the UEFA will probably get these particular security forces from the government as well. And they have the discretion to do so because the government will most likely also want to cooperate with them as well. You reasonable, I said that in my speech.
Ma'am, it was very clear from your setup that obviously those national authorities will just stay outside the shade. Limited power for such national authorities. And now, through your POI, we even conceded that we need these national authorities government on this side. But now, we actually have to be comparative here. You see, what's the proposal? We tell you, UEFA is more on a reactive side. For example, when it comes to coordination, national authorities right away employ such security forces and even preemptive mechanisms versus the FIFA when they said that, you know what, they'll penalize teams, they'll penalize the games. Where is the more effective enforcement? It's with national authorities. Now finally, let's deal with the case of DPS. You know, she told us first that you need a standardization of rules. Apparently, she told us you have some very lax countries. But now, give me a lax country that actually exists within UEFA. I don't think there's a country that exists. You know why? Because, for example, where do hooligans come from? The British, the Irish. Britain has the tightest security ever within UEFA. So we tell you, you know what? Such countries that have threats of hooligans have very tight and effective national authorities. I don't see the point why you need to take them away. But now let's go to her other complaint. She told us that fans apparently don't know what to do. They don't know what's not allowed and what's not. But then we question, if you just want to achieve this, why do you need to relinquish those national authorities? I.e., you can have coordination between such security forces from UEFA and so on. So we tell you they can be publicized, they can be mitigated without relinquishing national authority. So the solution isn't really mutually exclusive on their side. Because to add to this rebuttal, we tell you that at least national authorities, they decide security mechanisms that are tailor-fit for the nation, i.e. how much, let's say, police you need in this kind of big stadium versus your arbitrary proposal where you can't even prove that it's work or you can't even prove that it's tight enough. Last point.
Okay, what's so wrong with adding on to the effectivity of police by requiring these particular UEFA companies to actually provide their own private security forces? Because at the end of the day, we had a second prong, which you ignore. The national government's hosting can reinforce what's
Madam Chair, you can see a shift in the way of now they're telling us you're adding on to these forces. Very clear from the start, they just want the national authorities outside this issue. So I don't see why it's reinforcement versus a relinquishment. Now let's go on to my case on expectations and mandate. On the first step, on the football culture. Because now we have to question, what's the problem with order? You see, this is it. UEFA actually has less incentive to deal and to reform the hooliganism culture. Why is that so? And it's so define what hooliganism is. For example, you have very rowdy remarks from audiences and so on. And they still say, oh, the fans are just having it. Those who lead UEFA are actually those who have been old in the football game already. For example, the Brits and the Irish. They've already accepted that it's actually part of there's less incentive to reform. For example, in society, it has already permeated that hooliganism goes down, has already been part of the culture, i.e. you grew up with Manchester United and even up to your children, you still support here. Now let's compare it. Why do you need those national authorities to even have greater precedence or greater say in terms of security over UEFA? We tell you those national authorities have greater incentive to actually reform this hooliganist culture of football, i.e. they don't rely on this culture, and even taking it from the Prime Minister when he said that UEFA even tends to capitalize on emotions for profit. You don't have this kind of mindset when it comes to national authorities. That's why they should have a greater say, greater hand when it comes to security. Because now, let's compare. We tell you, versus the hooliganism culture, the national authority will tend to promote arbitrary values, let's say, public order and community interest. So we tell you, at the end of the day, that's how you reform the hooliganism culture, when you make sure that when it comes to security, national authorities comes first. Now, to beef this up, let's talk about how UEFA even deals with enforcement when it comes to this kind of culture. The problem with UEFA is that their punishment are actually on the aspect of the game, i.e. they even said you punish the teams, you punish those fans that actually distract the game. But now what's so special with national authorities? We tell you the enforcement is more expensive, i.e. for example, in national authorities, even if it doesn't disrupt the game, but as long as it had to do something with football and it endangers public safety, they can now enforce the rules. UEFA doesn't have that kind of power. So at the end of the day, we need these national authorities, not just outside the stadium as they want.